stop him.
We are live. Good morning, good evening, good day, good night, wherever you are in the realm right now. Sorry about that little glitch in the intro. I guess I didn't have something set up right, but here we are. How are you doing, brother? I'm here with the co-host with the most, Ronnie Harris.
It's really nice to be here tonight. I'm going to look forward to going into these model killers, right? So yeah, no, we all have glitches. Everything can't always run perfectly. We have to just do the best that we can and try to do better every day. But I'm excited tonight. I do enjoy the reality debunks. We're supposed to investigate reality. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. So we're going to be going through the recent release of the hit debunk, Heliocentrism and the fake flat earth psyop debunked. And for those of you that have had the opportunity to watch that, you'll see that it moves pretty quickly through the debunks. So there's not a whole bunch of time between them. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to stop and take a look at things in depth and make sure that we're going to be watching the chat if there's questions about these debunks, how it's a debunk, stuff like that. Tonight's the night that we're going to go through and analyze each one of them a little bit in depth, where we can hit pause and actually there's a whole bunch of extra debunks that surround all this, a whole bunch of surrounding evidence that the video just didn't have time for. So we'll be able to add some of that tonight.
Yeah, unless you wanted to make a 10-hour video, right? So you got to compress the stuff as much as we can and bring you guys the truth that we find. And you've done a good job of doing that with this video with the 13 debunks. Right, so there's quite a bit of debunks to go through. We're here. It's a Wednesday night. The weather's nice. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the realm are enjoying the weather. But yeah, so what are your top thoughts tonight?
Top thoughts. Let's see. Outside of this content, I do believe that we're entering Purim, right? So I think 16, 17, 18 are the dates that are sort of outlined for Purim, although it's a 2-day thing. What we're really looking for is the full moon. So when the full moon hits you, we understand that across this realm, we've got Bronick, who's joined us, that him over in Australia, it's good morning. Here, it's good evening. The sun just set for us. So it's when we're talking about dates, we have to understand that a date traverses 24 hours. So that really does add like an extra day to stuff. So Purim's interesting. Headline wise, I'm looking for things maybe about a week out from now as we're hitting Purim. And the things that we're looking for always are the beginning of the Great Tribulation. So a lot of things are setting up like we could be coming into that soon. And so that's exciting. This isn't really so much a spiritual night as it is more of a science-y type night where we're going through debunks of models of reality. But yeah, I mean, we cover all these topics, so we talk about them all.
Yeah, we don't just stick to one topic. We're mixed truthers, right? We don't just do one style of truth. We do them all. And we also have some great tunes. That was a great intro that we played too. I really like it.
I really wish I hadn't messed it up. That's
no,
bothering
it's fine.
me right now.
It's fine. Yeah, we'll probably put the link in the description box below. And then the outro track, the outro track, we could go into a little bit of an explanation. Jason asked for a certain type of song, and it's interesting because I feel like the realm gave us the exact sentiment from what you were looking for. It's pretty cool how it all works, how we all work together as this team. And yeah, the glitches and stuff always happen, right? It's funny because I think there's just a what do we call it? When something happens, it's not manually done. It's just a setting to the realm. So it doesn't matter sometimes how hard we try. There's something that's going to just trip us up a little bit. We got to get back up and we got to keep going. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the realm is watching people get back up, right? And even falling too. So
it's just
I just think it makes
water under the bridge. But sometimes I look at it and I'm like, what was I thinking? What did I do? Go ahead. We've got Jerry Albert in the chat that brings up 322. So yeah, we're talking about upcoming events. And of course, that is a very occultic number. Skull and Bones props that one up. So we're always watching for events on that. And yeah, that's right after the equinox. So the equinox is the measure between winter and spring. And so, biblically speaking, once we cross the equinox, we are out of winter. So, yeah, it could be the time that things start to pop off. We're excited.
Yeah, so what the word I was thinking of in regards to modeling and programming, you have what would be called a randomizer, right? So there's a scale where you can set the amount of randomness of things happening. And I feel like we're all subject to it. Now, the greatest of us are able to, unrandomize things and keep everything organized and in habitual routines. And this is the thing that we strive to be. And, the imperfections make things beautiful. Like if everything was always exactly the same, it would be really boring here. So yeah, you've got the model killers. I like how you've coined that term, because we usually say thread killers when people do posts online and you show up and just drop the truth and it shuts the post down. It's called a thread killer. So what you've done here in this video is you put together 13 model killers when dealing with the AE map and the false dialectic of the spinning potato globe Earth. So it's interesting that we get to share this kind of content with people. Like, we don't just do one style, we bring it all to you, because investigating the realm is like the highest of things that we should be doing. Why else are we here? Like, if you get dropped into something, don't you want to check it out? What are you doing inside this place? How did you get here? Who made it? What is it made for? Where are we going? These are the types of things. And nobody other than you, Jason, is able to go into the modeling programs and put together three-dimensional diagram, three-dimensional images, two-dimensional images to create a three-dimensional understanding. I think one of the key points tonight that really jumps out at me, it just jumps out at me, is the fact that the sun and the moon are provably, observably two-dimensional objects. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, that's a neat one. Just to say such a thing. We're probably the first people to ever speak those words aloud. But from the video, there's the evidence that the moon and sun are two-dimensional objects that we are witnessing. So if you envision yourself in a 3D world, how could you have two-dimensional objects? Well, it's only possible within a virtual reality, and it's another great core level proof of the nature of our reality, the fact that we're witnessing something that is a 2D object. So that's a neat one. I also want to point out that so these Baker's dozen debunks of heliocentrism and the fake flat earth, this is just looking at it from one aspect, revolving around the moon, right? Just the moon is the focus of this. It's one graphic about heliocentrism, and it's one model of the fake flat earth, and we're talking about the moon, right? So there's so many more debunks of both of these models from so many other aspects. I mean, we weren't talking about curvature, we weren't talking about motion, we weren't talking about any of these other things that debunk these models. This is just 13 using the moon with two graphics, right?
So yeah. What it basically shows is that everyone in the realm, everywhere, only sees one face of the sun and the moon, and they cartwheel through the sky. And depending on where you are on the map is the orientation of where the dots, sunspots on the sun, and what they call craters or pockmarks on the moon, the face of the moon. People see the man in the moon, the woman in the moon, however you want to call it. Those just clockwise rotate. And the fact that you can go anywhere on the map and you can look up at the sky and you only see that one face absolutely is undeniable evidence that it's a two-dimensional object. Because if we were seeing a three-dimensional shape there, you would see the underside of it. Like, Jason could bring you into the modeling program and you could look up and you would see different faces of the moon as it rotated and spun around through the sky. You wouldn't just always see the one face. There's these little interesting things that we're able to look into now that we have the advent of modeling programs. So again, one more thing I wanted to touch on before we move ahead with the amazing video that you put together with the model killers is the understanding of the ability of us to actually create things in reality right now. Never in the history of the realm, as far back as we can actually verifiably observe and prove, have we ever had content online where we had these spiritual things where you could add music and truth and video content and graphics. Because for the rest of time, people had to stand in the corner of the square of town where everybody would get their groceries, and you would have to say, hey, did you guys know the earth is flat and the sun and the moon are two-dimensional objects in the sky? Like, we can actually create a video. Jason could bring you into the modeling program and show it to you guys on the other side of the screen. For me, this is priceless. If I had to pick a time to come and fight for the truth, this is the absolute greatest time we've ever been able to create this. The word of creation is able to manifest itself through visual, through music, through truthful voice content and imagery on screen everywhere in the realm. People can tune in right now live on YouTube. If you got a VPN, if you're in China or Russia or somewhere else that's not allowed to connect here, you just get a VPN, you can hack your way around and you can still tune in. So this broadcast could be going out to every single person in the realm if it wasn't the most censored night show in the realm. But so I just wanted to give thanks that we're able to do this tonight because of the time period where we are in the future, guys. I know it's not exactly what we thought it was going to be. And there's a very good chance that the Great Tribulation could start any day and that things are going to change really quick, but we do know that we live forever. So we know the ending. So let's rejoice. Let's have fun tonight, bro. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it should be good. Yeah, let's go ahead. I'll get the video up and we'll start pointing out a few things for people.
Yeah. So it's been a while since we've done the AE and Globe Earth smashes. I don't see any of this content really online. Now I see some Globe Earth proponents putting out nonsensical ideas and ad hominem attacks where they just attack people's character, but you know, you're still bringing the my perspective style 3D modeling. If you guys on the other side of the screen don't know who Rory Cooper is, from my perspective, he's an original flat earth content creator who did modeling, and he would show you the perspectives that didn't work. And you're just furthering his concepts and you're absolutely adding upon them. And, you know, brand new, like the Rahu debunk with the black body in the sky. There's things tonight that you guys are going to hear that have never been shared before. These are brand new model killers. And I'm just excited to be here. So I think you've got it now.
Yeah, I wish I knew how to use the tools that Rory was using. I could do some better stuff.
He uses a different engine.
He does the modeling in that program. So a lot of the stuff that I do is sort of filming myself moving models around. You'll see tonight. So this video right here was premiered March 12th. It's got almost 1,000 views on it. So I had a shill tell me that it wouldn't get 1,000 views. And I'm just about ready to debunk and expose that guy because I have a feeling that we're going to get over 1,000 views. You got to be excited about what you can get these days, right? So I just want to show everybody down in the comments. It's not the pin comment. There's another one that has the timestamps for the video. So we've got the intro. We've got each one of the debunks listed here. We've got the middle here, what's going on, and then we have the 7 debunks here. So, you know, what we really want to do, the intro is important for a person to understand just that, let me skip ahead just a hair here. What Nick did is he recorded both the sun and the moon being up above the horizon in his circle of sight. And that prompted him to make a video about how this happens on a flat earth. Well, he was only referencing the Freemason New World Order AE map and model with the sun and moon doing circles, which is going to be debunked here. So the what happened here is with the sun and moon being above like this, when I started doing research for this, right away Heliocentrism, their explanations, their graphics, their diagrams for this, I could see just incredible, huge flaws. And I was like, oh man, not only do I want to debunk Nick's version of how this works on the AE Mappa model, but I also want to debunk the Globe's version of this as well at the same time. So just a little bit of intro, and then let's go to heliocentric debunk number 1 and start taking a look at the meat of the video here. Now you will notice that the moon is defined as having an orbit that is tilted 5 degrees to the ecliptic plane. That 5-degree tilt is defined to the ecliptic plane, not Earth's 23.5-degree tilt in heliocentrism. As you can see in each of these diagrams, the tilt of... So I just want to point out here that what we witness is the moon travels just a little bit wider, 5 degrees wider than the tropics. So those are bands that would be parallel with this red line here, with the equator. So that's the path that the moon travels between. We don't have the moon being 90 degrees overhead north of that. So right here I'm starting to talk about what could be made another heliocentric debunk, and that is that if this was the case, if the moon was up this high or down this low, you would have latitudes way farther north than just 28 degrees, especially with this out here 239,000 miles here. Right, is the path, like if we actually had a version of the heliocentric model as a 3D model that we could put markers on and take readings and elevations from, it would blow your mind. That's the reason why there is none. But makes you wonder how they ever traveled to space, right? They don't have a 3D model of where this is going to be and when.
Ding.
All right, we'll keep going. Let's go. The moon's orbit is contrary to the tilt of Earth in heliocentrism. So now that you have the lay of the land in heliocentrism, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's take a look at what heliocentrism calls the nodes. We have the March equinox and the September equinox being labeled as the nodes. Each of these nodes are the only time eclipses of the sun and moon could ever take place. Looking at the diagram, we can see that there are only 2 possible times this could happen, and that it is at the equinoxes which have been labeled nodes. Let's zoom in on the March node, as this will be the easiest to see. In heliocentrism, the moon must transit in front of the sun in order for a solar eclipse to take place. Now, as we know, in Alright, so we'll stop and take a look at this. You can see that in heliocentrism, you have to have the moon in this position. This is what they call a no moon, in between the Earth. And here's the paths. They're outlined. The diagram has them labeled for us. The only thing that they don't have labeled is the rotation of Earth, but we'll be getting to the proof of that coming up. So with the moon in this position, you can see that only at the equinox could you have the eclipses, right? Because this is the point where it crosses Earth's orbital plane in heliocentrism. And they have this all diagrammed out. It would be in the shadows at the equinoxes, March and December. Heliocentrism, the Earth is moving 67,000 miles per hour around the sun, and the moon is traveling 2,288 miles per hour around Earth. So we see here at the March equinox that Earth is moving 67,000 miles per hour this way, and that the moon is moving 2,288 miles per hour this way. With Earth having a diameter of less than 8,000 miles,
Yeah, I could just take a pause.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're going to probably end up doing, I've already asked Jason if he'd be interested in doing it, would be to actually model out the trajectory of the moon and the speed changes that it would actually take to wrap around the backside of the Earth, as it shows in this diagram, while it's also traveling at 67,000 miles. So remember, the moon has to then go behind the Earth and then speed back up,
catch up to it.
And it all has to be happening with the most precision out of anything in creation. There's never been a watch or a clock or anything made by any craftsman that even comes close to the steady and predictability of these objects we're discussing tonight. There's no variation. There's no wobble. The sun is rising. The moon is rising. They do it perfect. Like, they are perfect. We don't even like to use that word, but there's an example where I actually can. The movements of the luminaries are perfect.
Yeah. So Ronnie is talking about this motion right here as it's going back behind the Earth. Then it's going sideways here. Now all of a sudden it has to go faster than the Earth to catch up to it again.
It'd be more than, it would be double the speed, right? Like anyone knows.
Yeah, it would have to, all this would have to be slingshot. It'd have to be going faster. Then it would have to start slowing down in order for it to be constant around a moving object. It's physics 101.
It's impossible.
So one of the pushbacks that I've been getting in the comments on this is this very first heliocentric debunk. What you're going to see is that I've combined the speeds of 67,000 with 2,288 miles per hour because they're going in opposing directions. Now the heliocentrists want to come in and say everything is relative and only the speed of the moon matters. Right?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely not. When they bring that relativity up to me, I want to get angry because you can't just equal something and say, well, because I made this thing, I'm over here, they're now equal to each other, and therefore they're not moving at all. Right? Well, it's just nonsense. It's an ad hoc theory.
I just want to expose all this right now. This is the time to do it. So if just the moon's speed here, the 2,288 miles per hour, if you were to start with the moon going across 8,000 miles, that would take 3.5 hours, right? But in order for that to happen, Earth has to be stationary. It can't move, right? So the moon moving and the Earth not moving would take 3.5 hours. Now I had another guy come in and say that I was supposed to subtract the 2,288 from the 67,000.
Take it away?
Take it
like
away.
They're not going in opposing directions?
Well, see, that would be the case on this.
It's catching up. It's catching up at 2,288 miles now.
That would be the case during the moon being on this side, right? Now it's catching up. So that would be when you would subtract the 2,088. But when they're going opposing directions, you add them together. So even when he subtracted it, the length of the solar eclipse was like 7 minutes and 50 seconds or something. Eclipses have taken like 5 hours, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Long time. We witnessed when we filmed the whole thing. We live streamed it. We got the evidence. We're not just making this up.
So that's even with a stationary Earth, the 3.5 hours, way too short. That's with Earth not moving. Just a fixed Earth, like a geocentric model where Earth's not moving and just the moon is. And then anybody knows that this is a pool shot. Like the bank angle here becomes radical, especially this is 239,000 miles away from here. This is a long bank shot. So you know how hard it is to get an alignment on something like that, right?
Oh, it's hard. But it can happen.
Just imagine instead of an 8-foot pool table, you had a 93 million mile long pool table, and then you had to hit a ball down here that's just 230,000 miles away from this ball, right?
I like it. I love it when they come in and they say, well, if you want to be more accurate, I think what you need to do is make a more, what do they say? On the scale. The scale needs to be enlarged, more accurate. What's the correct term that I'm trying to go for here? A more realistic modeling with the scaling?
Yeah, well,
do they know?
We'll get in.
So for us to make a small scale version of this, like somebody in Dallas would have to be like the sun, somebody in Austin would be like the moon, and then like somebody we would have to go 1,000. We don't even have enough Earth space to even project this into a scalable model if we're trying to copy what the heliocentrists say.
And that's the reason why they use that, because you cannot represent.
It's irrational.
You can't represent a scaled model.
You can't. That's it. Scaled. A scaled model. If you were to try to make it, like, it's stupid. You need someone thousands of miles away holding a sign. Okay, this is the sun, and then somebody thousands of miles away holding another sign. Okay, this is the moon, and someone another 1,000 miles away. Okay, this is the Earth. And they want us to accurately project that into a 3D modeling program. How many screens wide would this have to be?
Yeah, well, and your resolution, you'd have to be running like 100,000 K in order to
Stop it. Nobody even has 8K monitors yet. But that's the next thing. They're going to say, well, could you get this up in 8K?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is somebody else griped about the scale in these heliocentric diagrams. And of course, I didn't make this. This comes from heliocentrism. And this is all they can do because their scales are so ridiculous.
This is how they tried to make it work. They tried to squish it down, generalize it, throw in a bunch of angles, call these things here nodes, and then you added the speeds. You added the shadow. You're the one that's putting the stuff in that they're trying to hide from you. That's what you've basically done here. It's like a scratch video where you scratch off the hidden revealed truth underneath the picture, right? That would be a funny meme. You scratch the screen and it appears. We'd have to call that a scratch-eme or something. I don't know.
All right, so let's finish this debunk here. We'll take a look at the proof that heliocentrism is debunked by this right here. Transit of the shadow would take roughly 6 minutes and 56 seconds at the combined speed of 69,288 miles per hour. All right, so that's the distance, the width of Earth, 8,000 miles, the combined speeds because they're going opposing directions. We're looking at a solar eclipse right now. We're not looking at a lunar eclipse. In the case of a lunar eclipse, we would subtract the 2,288 miles, and then this number would be like roughly 7 minutes, 50 seconds, something like that. It would be like a minute longer. And that would be the length of a lunar eclipse. Well, of course, we have lunar eclipses way longer than... So there's another debunk built into it right there. It wasn't even talked about.
Well, actually,
go ahead.
The eclipse, sometimes they go like almost the whole width of the map, right?
Yeah,
so
well,
that's 24 hours.
So what I saw when looking this up is the longest path. When you have the longest totality, it also has the longest path. So in the video that I'm making that explains how the virtual reality stereographic map, how that all works, one of the big things is going to be showing how eclipses actually work. And you're going to see that it has to do with the rise and set angles of both the sun and the moon across sections of land at certain times where there is an alignment in that during a new moon. And that's how we get our solar and lunar eclipses. So that's forthcoming. I'm working on it, but it's going to be a big project. It's going to be longer than this video, and I'm going to have to put in a whole bunch of proof of what I'm saying because, of course, there'll be the opposition to it, right? Although this is an extreme stretch. No opposition?
No. Were you joking there? Like,
yeah,
I didn't
nobody's
have time. I switched to the left hand on the mouse pad, so it took me a little longer to get to the click, but I was about to interject and say, how can anyone debunk it? Unless they're going to model it up and show us how you're incorrect, which they can't do because you already went through all that when you were making this.
Yeah, I guess.
You did.
Considering that the moon's orbit is said to be an average distance of 239,000 miles, thus making the alignment extremely difficult. So that's that 93 million mile long bank shot that heliocentrism is trying to pull. The longest total solar eclipse ever recorded was 6 minutes 38.86 seconds. But that was the length of totality for an observer anywhere along its path. So does everybody understand that when you're in the path of totality, we're given a measurement of how long the totality lasts for
the overlap
for the observer, right?
The complete overlap.
Yeah.
Of the two celestial spheres. They're not spheres. Objects. Luminaries. Thank you. They're not spheres.
So 6.5 minutes of totality, but the length of the eclipse from start to finish as it traversed across the world, 5 hours, 15 minutes. So, the actual length of the eclipse transiting across the face. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, he doesn't want me to talk. So when you're watching the eclipse, from the time that the two bodies overlap till the end, that's the time frame they're giving you. They're not giving you the whole start to finish, which all is basically aligned in a similar way. They would have to be in their model.
Well, the funny thing is they do provide graphics that have that information. This is a NASA.gov eclipse model of the July 22nd, 2009. This is that super long eclipse, the record one, right? So,
Okay.
I just highlighted here, they didn't have the red lettering or the arrows. They just had the 35 and central duration. So watch as this starts playing here. Face of Earth took over 5 hours. So central duration, this is still climbing. We're at 5 minutes 50 seconds. We're an hour and 35 minutes in to the eclipse. They didn't even start counting until the totality started moving across here, right? But this shadow right here is being measured right here. So as this goes along, so the first debunk of heliocentrism here. So it gets up to its maximum length of totality at this point right here. That's already 2 hours 25 minutes in. Here is that the length of solar eclipses that we record and see, it's shrinking again. Its maximum totality was when it was right in the center here. Witness are much too long for the heliocentric model. All right, 5 hours 15 minutes. That's how long
It's a long time. If everything's traveling at the proposed speeds that they do try to tell us, this completely flies against what is observed.
It is. So heliocentrism is debunked by the length of solar eclipses.
Too long.
Another way to debunk heliocentrism is that we can literally map which direction an eclipse has to happen and at what time. If the Earth is moving this way 67,000 miles per hour and the Moon is traveling this way 2,288 miles per hour, then to have an eclipse, be it total or annular or partial, the path of the eclipse must be from the south to the north. All right, so just make sure everybody's getting this. We have the Moon going around. This is what they say. They've got the arrows drawn here, right? The Moon's going around this way. This is our March equinox. That means the Moon is coming into its new moon position from this direction. So if the Earth is moving this direction and the Moon is moving this direction, that means that the eclipse has to start from the southerly point on Earth, and it has to move north during the eclipse, right? It has to. North during the March equinox. The reciprocal is true during the September equinox. In this case, eclipses must happen from the north to the south. This is for the same reason the Earth is traveling this way. The eclipse position, right, is this inside path. Lunar eclipses is the outside part here. So the Moon has to be going down like this as the Earth is moving forward, meaning that the shadow has to start from the north and travel south. The paths of totality promoted by heliocentrists shows that it is not always the case, though. All right, so you look here, December 14th, 2020. We've got this path where it starts. Remember, they come from the west to the east. That is how they happen. We've got it starting near the equator, coming down real far south into Argentina and Chile, and then coming back up to the coast of Africa over here. Like, none of these swoops work when it has to be from the north to the south during the December solstice, and it has to be south to north during the March equinox. But, yeah, I wanted to say September equinox. So it's the equinoxes that we're looking at. Promoted by heliocentrists shows that it is not always the case, though. Sometimes the paths are going the wrong direction, which is heliocentric debunk number 2. There is another closely linked debunk of heliocentrism, and that is the direction that the path of totality shows up. The path of totality could only show up on the ground as traveling from east to west, due to the direction of rotation of Earth. Let's zoom in here a little bit and watch. The path of totality of a solar eclipse is a... All right, do you see where the shadow is on the Earth right now. So Earth is rotating in this direction right here because we know sunrise is in the east and sunset in the west. It can't be rotating the other direction. It has to be rotating the direction that it is. And it also means that in heliocentrism, eclipses have to begin in the east and travel west. Watch. It's a narrow, rough. See, now it's in Ecuador. Roughly 70-mile wide. Now it's south of the U.S. band that experiences the sun fully blocked by the moon. Now it's coming into New Zealand and Australia and the Philippines. With Earth spinning in the direction required for sunrise to be in the east and sunset in the west, we can clearly see that all eclipses must begin in the east and travel west. This is an unarguable point. So we go back to our longest eclipse, and which direction is it traveling? Well, you can clearly see in their animation that it's traveling from the west to the east.
Whoops.
Whoops. Whoops. Whoops. And the reason why this is heliocentric debunk number 3. I want to give special attention to heliocentric debunk number 4 because it is the most easily verifiable debunk of heliocentrism in my opinion. Let's focus on the fact that the only time a lunar or solar eclipse could ever take place in heliocentrism is at the March equinox and the September equinox. Do you see that? Do you remember why we're looking at this graphic? It is because this graphic is the explanation of why we do not have lunar eclipses every full moon. Scientists have put the moon at a 5.1 degree tilt to the ecliptic plane in the reciprocal direction of Earth's tilt, to get it out of the way. That is because without this motion, the moon would be eclipsed every full moon. So look at what happens as a result of this. Lunar or solar eclipses cannot take place anywhere near the December solstice or near the June solstice. The model literally makes it impossible for either a lunar or solar eclipse anywhere near these dates. So what happens if we look up the dates of projected lunar and solar eclipses? Will we get... Alright, so I just want to show everybody here. The reason why this graphic was made by the heliocentrists was to explain why we don't have a lunar eclipse every month. Because without this 5-degree tilt to the ecliptic plane like this, it would be eclipsed behind Earth every month. We wouldn't see full moons, right? They would be eclipses. So they put it up, and they have it up at the June solstice and the December solstice. All right, so could we have eclipses at this time of the year? No, literally no. The whole graphic was made to prove that the moon would be too high or too low. That's literally the reason. But guess what we get? What happens if we look up the dates of projected lunar and solar eclipses? Will we get any outside the narrow window of the equinoxes, which are the only times that are possible with the first one listed here, June 21st. June 21st, that literally is the June solstice. Mm-hmm. All right, December 14th, this is just 1 week away from the December solstice. June 10th, this is just 12 days away from the June solstice. December 4th, let's see, 21st, 17 days. So the first 4 listed right here are during the solstices, during the time period where their model says you can't have an eclipse. Can't have it. So this, out of all the heliocentric debunks, is the absolute smasher. Smasher. You can just take them to something that's documented as being impossible, and that's it. It's end of it. It's over. The heliocentric model? Of course. Let's look through these lists. So that is heliocentric debunk number 4. Lunar or solar eclipses could only happen within an extremely narrow window of the equinoxes. Now that we have broached the topic of why heliocentrists use this graphic as to why we do not have eclipses of the moon every full moon, let's take a look at another way we can debunk heliocentrism. As you can see here, the reason we are to not expect an eclipse every full moon is that from the March equinox to the September equinox, and from the September equinox to the March equinox, the moon is either too high or too low. Now everyone knows that Earth has two polar rotations, except for the fake flat earth shills that promote the Freemason New World Order AE map and model, which has only one, and they have to deny the existence of a south polar rotation. But if you do understand that Earth has two polar rotations and that the stars rotate counterclockwise north of the equator around Polaris, and they rotate clockwise south of the equator around a starless spot called Sigma Octans, then you will know that each one of these diagrams have their north pole pointed towards Polaris, which is only visible north of the equator, and their south pole pointed towards Sigma Octans, which is only visible south of the equator. That means that during the December solstice, only north... Alright, so I want to stop here and say that this is one of the hardest ones of the debunks to actually show, because it requires the 3D modeling that we spent some time talking about. And that right there, because of the scales involved, it's impossible to show somebody the results and show them at scale. So the whole point is here we have the 28.6 degree tilt. And so on a globe, once you're north of the equator, you can't, if you're north of the equator, you can't see Sigma Octans. If you're south of the equator, you can't see Polaris. All right, so once you have the moon too high, and it's at a steep angle here, and it's 239,000 miles away up here someplace, right? This isn't to scale. It's way, way, way up here. The point is that during full moon, only people in the north should be able to see it. All right, the people that are south of the equator, they're looking down here. All right, so they wouldn't be looking up and seeing the full moon, but they are. And so this is one of those things that it's just reversed between the December solstice and the June solstice. But that's the whole point of it. The problem is being able to show a scaled model of this. The scales make it too hard.
You can't, because it's not reality. Just like you can't get water to stick to a sphere and spin it and throw it around the room at the same time. Everything, when you try to model it shows you what's possible, right?
So that's the reason why I like heliocentric debunk number 4, because that one we've got, something tangible. You can see they had there's eclipses during these solstices when they can't happen. But we'll finish this one out. North of the equator could see the moon going into or out of full moon, and that only south of the equator could see the moon coming into or out of new moon. Let's look at the reciprocal of that at the June solstice. During the June solstice, only north of the equator could see the moon coming into or going out of new moon. You see, this is the new moon phases, right? So you got your waxing crescent and your waning crescent. These would be up really high in the north, and people below the equator should not be able to see this, even though this is the harder one to see. But then the full moon, which should be very, very visible, should be too low for the people in the north. You would have Earth curve in the way, right? Earth bulge. You can't see through the Earth. How could you see a full moon if it's down below like that? So it's a harder one to prove through the graphics, but it is a debunk. And only south of the equator could the moon be seen going into or out of full moon. There is no place on Earth that has ever recorded not being able to see the moon for more than 2 days, and it has never been based on latitude. That is the 5th heliocentric debunk that we've been able to get out of this one graphic. Each one of the debunks have facts that are verifiable, testable, and repeatable. True science. So at this point, the person with common sense has to admit that heliocentrism has been thoroughly debunked. But I'm not done yet. While I have this graphic up here, I want to show you one more thing. You see this globe tilted 23.5 degrees to the ecliptic plane at the equinoxes? Let's zoom in on our March equinox node. Can you see that at the equinoxes that an Earth tilt of 23.5 degrees would make it impossible for the sun to rise 90 degrees east and set 270 degrees west? So I've got it moving already. Let's go back a click. So at the equinoxes, they have Earth sideways to the sun at a 23.5 degree tilt. Now, it's very, very hard to find representations of this, because what they like to do is show you a different side view where you can't see the tilt. All right, that's them just hiding it from you. The fact is that if it's tilted this way, here, that way there, then it's still 23.5 degrees, because Polaris, it's not wobbling, right? They don't have an Earth wobble in here. We're always pointed at Polaris and Sigma Octans. So it would have to be sideways here. So you could not have a 90 degrees east sunrise, and you could not have a 270 west sunset. What you would have to have possible for the sun to rise 90 degrees east and set 270 degrees west everywhere on Earth on the same day? Let me straighten this out so that you can see how Earth would have to be positioned for that to work. Now you can see heliocentrism. See, in order to have 90, 270, Earth would have to have no tilt. Now, Ronnie, as we were going through this, provided an extra level of debunk. You want to share that, brother?
So, are we talking about seeing the faces of the moon?
No, the at the latitudes that they wouldn't be 90, 270 anymore.
Well, okay. So once you align this back onto the ecliptic plane the way you have, and you look at the roundidity, how do you say the word? Roundidity? What? The roundness of the Earth. So if we do the trigonometry and you measure north and south reciprocally, right, in the same directions, what you're going to find is the angles fall back away from the equator. You'd have a greater and greater rise and set angle from the sun and the moon, definitely on the equinox, because if the only way that this would actually work is if the Earth was a flat Mercator map, square, right? This is the only way that you would get a 9270. And even that still falls apart when you skew it out to infinity on the North and South Pole. That's why we use the stereographic map. But with the correct simplified words, not trying to be smart here, the further north and the further south you go, away from the equator, the greater the angle of the sunrise and sunset would be, because of the way that you're seeing around the curvature of the Earth.
Absolutely. So we have finished the 6 heliocentric debunks that are in the video. And in the next part of the video, I show Nick's footage of the sun and a full or near full moon above the horizon and his explanation for it. Then I show the animation of the Freemason New World Order AE map and model. So this right here, because Nick is literally at the cards to eclipse and New World about how eclipses work, comprehend. All right, so this graphic right here, this is a debunk. This is a debunk of the Freemason New World Order AE map and model. It's sort of funny because they show how the model would work, right? And then they show the moon view from southern regions and the moon view from northern regions. Right, so right now when the sun and moon are like opposed to each other, we're seeing an almost full moon, and south of the moon is showing just a tiny little sliver. So they're showing that based on latitude, you would see different phases of the moon in the same day. As this plays here, what Nick was talking about, the Freemason New World Order AE map and model, you'll see it changing with each lap, where the amount of full moon from the north is shrinking and the amount of visible moon from south of the moon is starting to grow. Now, it would actually be way worse than this. This is a super simplified version of it. But yeah, this right here is the Freemason New World Order AE map and model. Funny thing is the graphic that represents it actually, shows one of the debunks of it. All right. So let's jump ahead to the 3D modeling of a 2D moon. I want to talk about the reason I made the moon the way. This is more or less the reasons why certain things were done in the modeling the way I did. One of the facts that nobody is able to disagree with is that we only see one side of the moon. All right, so slow this down, let everybody see this. We've only seen this one face of the moon, no matter where you are on Earth. I'm going to show you that the view that you get from the north and the view that you get from the south, how that takes place. Both the north and the south see the exact same face of the moon, just inverted one from the other. That is the reason I went with a 2D picture of a full moon. I have a right side up picture and one flipped vertically stacked together. Alright, so now you can see it's the same picture, it's just been flipped. Alright, it's the same thing, just flipped. One face of the moon. So the observations from within the model will match what we observe in reality. There is no 3D model of a moon that could possibly be accurate, because no one has ever seen the backside of the moon. I spun a copy. So when I was first going to make this model, I was doing searches for model of the moon. I was going to import like a 3D model of the moon, but then it hit me, we only see one face of it. So absolutely any 3D model of it would have to just be make-believe, right? Because they would have to be filling in sides of the moon that's never been seen before. So that left me just taking the 2D graphic, flipping it, and then I turned another version of it sideways so that as we move this around in 3D space, that we can always still see it. But keep in mind, we're always seeing just the one side either flipped from each other. 90 degrees so that we could not only see the moon from the north and south, but also the east and west. I thought about just making the sun a sphere because my first inclination was that the sun did not have any defining marks worthy of consideration. But on second thought, I realized that sunspots are also proof of a 2D sun. So I made it the same way as I made the moon. I will show you the proof. Alright, so the fact that there are distinguishing marks, the moon's real easy. It's very distinguishing marks, but the sun will also have sunspots as well, and they'll just be inverted based on whether or not you're north or south of the sun. So once again, I didn't add it to the side view. I just wanted to show that this right here rotates actually just like the moon. We'll be getting into that. Proof of what I'm talking about in just a little bit. There is one more thing I want to point out. While we understand that the sun travels between the tropics and that the tropics are defined by 23.5 degrees north to 23.5 degrees south, the moon can travel 28.640 degrees north or south of the equator. So this is, I just want to bang this home to everybody. The sun traveling between the tropics means that never will you have the sun 90 degrees overhead anywhere north of the Tropic of Cancer or south of the Tropic of Capricorn. The moon has just a little bit wider path that it travels between. It'll travel between 28.64 degrees north and south. All right, this is a better way of understanding it, even with the Freemason New World Order model, than with heliocentrism that has it tilted where it's going the opposing direction to the equator, because it has to stay between these degrees. On heliocentrism, it would travel outside of these for sure. Which is, if you subtract the 23.5 degrees that the sun travels between, you are left with 5.14 degrees that heliocentrists say the moon's orbit is inclined to. Now let's see, where are we at? We're at 3746. All right, let's jump to 3902. This is beginning of fake flat earth psyop debunk number 1. So here is where we're going to begin listing an extensive list of Freemason New World Order AE map and model debunks. First, if the sun has to be at solar noon out in the Pacific by Fiji, south of the equator, let's take a look at what direction an observer would have to be facing to watch the sun rise. Even with east and west being circles and never 90 degrees or 270 degrees in the Freemason New World Order AE map and model, it is clear as day to see that the sun would have to be rising north of east. Alright, you can see here, I've got these compasses set all around the map, and you can clearly see that from Phuket, which is right here, you'd be looking way north of east, because your green line's your equator going around. They're saying that you're going in circles and you just don't know it. So the green line here is the equator. We've got Phuket inside of the equator. All right, and then look at where we would be seeing the sun. Well, which direction is the sun rising from on January 18th? If we look at timeanddate.com, you will see that the sun is rising 111 degrees, which is 21 degrees south of east, and that it is setting 240. That's a lot. 21 degrees south of east. That's a lot. The fake flat Earth PSYOP model can't even handle 90 to 70, yet alone angles south. 21 degrees south of east. 49 degrees west, which is 21 degrees south of west. This is Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunk number 1. The rise and set angles of the sun do not match reality. Now let's look at the super smash of the PSYOP Flat Earth. In the Freemason New World Order AE map and model, full moon takes place when the moon is 180 degrees from the sun. And this is the explanation for the full moon face that we are accustomed to seeing. Only look at this. If we are getting a fully illuminated face of the moon due to this orientation, then nowhere south of the moon would ever get to see a full moon. If I spin this model around, you can clearly see that anywhere south of the moon would see no moon at full moon. From Nick's location, it could also not be a full moon because he would be seeing the moon from a side angle. The Freemason New World Order AE map and model offers the paradox of paradoxes, because the only place you could possibly see a full moon is if you are north of the moon's path. The only problem with that, though, is that we know that at full moon, the sun is setting and the moon rising, or the sun rising and the moon setting, meaning that the sun and moon... Alright, so paradox of paradoxes. These are the things that I enjoy. So you can understand from this here that the sun and moon have to be 180 to each other in the fake flat earth for this to be a full moon facing the sun. That's what their model demands. But full moons happen when the sun is rising and the moon setting, or the moon setting and the sun rising, which means that they have to be 90 degrees to the observer, which literally means you can't be north of the moon. Right? Can't be. All right, you would have to be here, and as soon as you put yourself there, you would twist the sun and moon another 90 degrees. You can't get in between a full moon on this model. So I like this one. It's a thinker. Moon are set 180 degrees to each other, with your longitude being the 90-degree mark. So no matter what, only unless you are north of the moon's meridian passing could you see a full moon. This paradox deserves Hall of Fame trophies for all Freemason New World Order AE map model shills for having the cojones to share such a debunkable model, and will go down as Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunk number 2. So does everybody get that in this model, if you were south of the moon's path, that you would see a dark moon, and if you were north of it, then you would see a full moon, but you couldn't really, because you couldn't be north of it, not during the full moon. Now that we are getting to see the moon from these side angles, another huge flaw is becoming self-evident. If we are an observer between 28.64 degrees north or south latitude, we know that the moon is going to travel 90 degrees overhead at some time or another. That means that we are going to see a side view of the moon coming and going from us. Not only could you never see a full moon from these latitudes like in Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunked number 2, but you would have to be able to see a side of the moon that no one has ever seen. If this is the way the moon is seen from north of the equator, and this is the way the moon is seen from south of the equator, then you cannot have the same faces of the moon on the sides of the moon. Right? How can you have one face facing north, have it inverted facing south, then see the exact same face from both sides? So once again, proof that it's a two-dimensional object. In the Freemason New World Order AE map and model, you would be able to see every side of the moon except for the very top of it. Once again, this model cannot comport with what we witness, and not being able to see all the way around the moon is Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunk number 3. Another closely related debunk is that of the moon's rotation. The moon cartwheels from rise to set. The one face of the moon rotates like this. This is the way it rotates from the north, and this is the way it rotates from the south. But that means in the Freemason New World Order AE map and model that we would end up seeing the top of the moon as well. So just when you thought that there might be a portion of the moon unseen in the Fake Flat Earth PSYOP there it goes, watch the rotation. Debunk number 3, that is thrown out the door when you understand that the moon has a cartwheel rotation. So Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunk number 4 includes that we would have to see the top of the moon as well. Does everybody get that? Do I still have you, brother? Are you still here?
Yeah, of course I'm here. I'm just in the chat right now.
Gotcha.
I was going to ask everyone if they're all paying attention, if they're getting these debunks all written down. Of course I'm here.
Which we don't. While we still have the sun and moon 180 degrees to each other, now is the time to talk about lunar eclipses. We know that lunar eclipses only happen at full moons, which is what we have depicted here in the Freemason New World Order AE map and model. You have the sun and moon 180 degrees to each other, and it's supposed to be a full moon. Fake flat earth shills have no possible explanation for lunar eclipses because even though they try and insert a third unwitnessed black body celestial object they call Rahu. What about Rahu? Have you ever heard of Rahu, brother?
Yes, I do. I have. Rahu is the figurative, imaginative creation of the Eric Dubé with his Eastern religion philosophy back in the day when he was doing that. And they try to explain the object that's supposedly obscuring the sun and the moon during eclipses. That's called Rahu.
Yeah, because in the Freemason model, how can you have a solar eclipse? Right, because they're supposed to be 180 degrees from each other. There's no body that would eclipse it, right? So they had to make up something that they called a dark body. This is like supposed to be some unlit planet, maybe Planet X or something like that. It's supposed to be floating around in the dome that ends up coming in and blocking every once in a while. So this debunk right here is to show that if you had a black body that is eclipsing what would be normally a full moon, right? But now it's you would be able to see that parts of the sky were being obscured. Common sense eliminates the theory by demonstrating that a black body would obscure sections of the night sky for observers anywhere on Earth. So, no possible explanation for lunar eclipses is Fake Flat Earth PSYOP Debunk number 5. Let's begin working our way to... Go because lunar eclipses only happen at full moons, right? A solar eclipse of the Freemason New World Order AE map model, and look at another extremely solid debunk along the way. We know that the sun rotates almost 15 degrees per hour and that the moon rotates just a bit slower, so that every month we have what appears to be the sun lapping the moon. In the Freemason New World Order AE map model, this is explained as such. From this full moon, the sun will continue to get closer to the moon each day, and it will begin to catch up to it from behind. That means as we get to a third quarter moon, the moon will be 90 degrees to the sun on the Shill model. You can already... Alright, so just going to point out here, in this, they're showing that this would be your moon phase for people in northern regions, and this would be your moon phase for people in southern regions. That's one part of the debunk, but it's even worse than that. We see at this point that the moon is going to be changing phases throughout the day radically based on latitude. We have the sun and moon set to 90 degrees on the azimuth, and if you take a look at this model like this, you can clearly see that the side of the moon facing the sun would be getting brighter and brighter, while this side of the moon would be dark. If you were on the ground between the tropics, you would have a black moon coming towards you, and then as soon as the moon passed your longitude, it would light up like a brighter full moon than the full moon when they were 180 degrees from each other. Alright, so before we had them 180 when it was full moon, but now you literally have the sun closer to the moon. Alright, this is closer when it's at 90 degrees than when it was at 180. This diagonal here is a shorter distance. So as they got closer and closer, you'd be seeing a brighter lit face of the moon, but it would still be full. This would be full from different vantage points on Earth, where if you were on the other side and it was coming towards you, it would be black. And this would all change within the course of one evening. And then the waning crescent would exaggerate this error. Now people of all southern latitudes would see solar eclipses at sunrise with the dark side of the moon towards them. If you were in the tropics, you would have a dark moon coming towards you, and then as soon as the moon passed your latitude, you would see the brightest full moon possible. If you were north or south of the tropics, you would see variations of radically lit slivers of the moon coming towards you. And then as soon as the moon passed your longitude, you would see the sliver morph into an almost full moon in minutes. The moon has never changed phase in the course of one evening, nor does the phase of the moon change by latitude. Those facts make the moon phases of the Freemason New World Order AE Mappa model impossible and are fake flat earth psyop debunk number 6. Once we have the sun and moon conjuncted, we have what the fake flat earthers call new moon, where the sun is too bright to see the moon. Then after this, the sun starts gaining distance from the moon while working its way back to being 180 degrees from the moon, and we call it a full moon again. The errors that we saw during a waning moon manifest in reverse during a waxing moon. Now, after the new moon conjunction, the first sliver of moon must be brightest and nearly full at moonrise, and then the moment the moon passes your longitude, it must go dark. This is all part of fake flat earth psyop debunk number 6, but I wanted you to understand that we had only looked at half the problem. Let's rewind to our new moon and take a look at the last debunk of the Freemason New World Order AE Mappa model that we will cover in this video. Lunar eclipses can only happen at full moons, and solar eclipses can only happen at new moons. In the Freemason New World Order AE Mappa model, solar eclipses are explained by the sun overtaking the moon and the sun being slightly higher than the moon, thus making the moon an object that obscures the sun. If we give the psyop model a little bit of slack and run with that scenario, we will still run into model killers. Let's drop the moon down a bit so that it can throw some shade for the sun. Now that we have it down at an elevation... Alright, so you should be able to see here now the explanation for a solar eclipse that takes place at new moon. That means that they have to be together. You have to have the moon a little bit lower than the sun, all right, and they have to be in perfect alignment. This radius is going to have to be the same radius, but the sun just a little bit higher in order to have a solar eclipse. Where it could actually eclipse the sun, let's take a look at what it would take to see a total solar eclipse. The sun has to overtake the moon, and they must be circling at nearly the exact same radius from the North Pole to have any chance of casting a shadow on Earth. While the Freemason New World Order AE Mappa model does get one aspect of solar eclipses correct that the heliocentric model fails at, that being the direction that the shadows would travel, let's take a look. Alright, so this graphic right here shows that as the sun would be overtaking the moon, that we would have to have shadows coming from Antarctica. They would have to start out at the edge, right, as this alignment was beginning, and that the closer that the sun got to the moon, this shadow would then move to the point where it was directly below both the sun and the moon, and then as the sun passed it, that shadow would move off and go off into Antarctica. All right, so one of the things that I didn't do in this video is point out that in the heliocentric model, all the eclipses would have to begin in Antarctica and end in Antarctica, but you can clearly see that here. Look at that. The shadows would begin in the west and move to the east as the sun was catching up to and overtaking the moon. So this is the one aspect that the Freemason model gets correct. They actually do have the shadows coming from the west to the east, where heliocentrism doesn't even get that part right. But there is still a debunk. But the debunk of this model's eclipse predictions is the duration of solar eclipses. New moons are always 1 day long, and some are 2 days long. That means that solar eclipses would be 1 to 2 days long in the Freemason New World Order AE Mappa model, and as we have covered already, the longest solar eclipse was 6 minutes 38.86 seconds. The totality, the length of it was like 5 hours 15 minutes. But here, since new moon alignment is a 1 to 2 day event, the eclipses would be 1 to 2 day events and have to follow a specific path as outlined by the model, thus making solar eclipses fake flat earth psyop debunk number 7. Well, that's it. That's the baker's dozen debunks.
So why don't we pull the chat up, or you can pull the chat up in your vision, and we can see if there's anybody that has any questions. I know there was a bunch of stuff going off topic, but it is a spot where people can come and connect with each other and talk. But do remember that the chat beside the video actually is a staple with the podcast. It's a section of it. What you say in there, other people do see.
Yeah, I don't think I saw anything on topic. Was there?
Well, Seth was on topic
a
few times. Yahawah's daughter he's always on topic. But there was a bunch of other stuff going on. But I like the way that we broke it down for anybody that's looking for a more deeper understanding of these debunks and basically the reasons why. This is the podcast for them, right? I think you explained it well. I've been here a couple times. I missed hitting the mute button, not in time, and you'd already started playing the clip again. But I think you put together great model killers, right? The speeds of the eclipse, the black body that we would see Rahu traveling throughout the sky, the direction of the eclipses, debunks both models, really. Well, the AE map model sort of gets it right to a certain point. The two-dimensional aspects of the sun and the moon, I think these are the key points that we should take away from this video. It's excellent, and it's going to help bring you to your next video when you're going to explain the model and reasons why we use it. This is why we've done these things, and I just think you've put it together really well. I still don't see the chat. I'm looking to see if there are any questions for you.
Danielle Meyer says, so what is the model you're presenting? Let's I'll show people what you can look at for now, and then there is a video that I'm working on. So let's go to the channel. Let's go to videos. And where is it? For stereographic virtual reality explained. So this
that the Earth is 72% covered in
hangout this hangout really outlines a whole bunch of the things that we've been covering for the last 5 years. It shows the map, the model. It shows a whole bunch of supporting evidence for it. This is a pretty comprehensive hangout right here for explaining how the map and model work. It was streamed January 7th, so not super long ago. Got almost 2,000 views. And so this is what we have to show in one package up until the time that I put out a new video on this topic. So the new one will be a little bit more... it'll be
nice.
It'll just be packed with more information because I'm doing it as a video, so I can just I can narrate to a script, and I can bring up graphics and do it in a specific order. We're doing this in a live stream, can be a little chaotic.
Yeah, I was losing it in this video here, just snapping on people. We've had enough. It's been 8 years. I'm banging my desk. I got super passionate to the point of righteous indignation. I started flipping the live stream on to the end, right? Everybody out. I grabbed a whip that night. And, I've learned a lot since then, right? I've changed my perspective. I've changed my approach. I'm learning to do things in a little bit better, different of a way. I'm not going to say better. But again, this is the model. I'm looking in the chat to see if anyone else is asking questions. This is the stereographic map of reality with the four corners. You got the two celestial points that they mirror the north and the south pole. And the south pole is split into two halves, giving you two total poles. A lot of people, well, that's a 3-pole map. No, there's one in the north, and then it's split in the half in the south. So there's still only two.
And you can count that. So you have your lines of longitude. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On this side, you have 12 on this side. So 24. These are 15 degrees. All right. So this makes up the full circle. This is what everybody's familiar with. Everything has it marked off in the 15-degree increments. 24 time zones. So each one of these would be the true representation of the 24 time zones. Now, coming off of this side comes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you have this half coming over here. You have this half coming over here. So this as a whole, even though it's split, is the 24.
Time zones, which is, we theorize that the sun travels at 1,000 miles an hour and the realm itself is 24,000 miles wide. That's the boundaries that the creator hath set. Not a nice wall. Not a nice wall. The amount of time that it takes for the sun to cross directly above your head until it crosses that path the next day. That's how wide the realm is, times 24. That's the way that it's mapped out. We have it here. A lot of people misrepresent it. Anyone that's tried to debunk it has misrepresented it.
And so it's super close to 1,000 miles per time zone. Right? True. Because you got 24 time zones, you got 24,000 miles. It's just a little bit off. So roughly speaking, you can look at the degrees as 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles.
Yeah, completely. This is basically it. But you're going to break it down in a much better way during the video that you're working on now. It's going to be great. Another banger of the truth about everything of our realm, what we can measure. There's not too many questions coming in, brother. I don't know. Did you want to keep going? I do know that the end song here, the outro, is a great track. I like the way that you mixed it together too with the videos. You do an excellent job at that. Everything absolutely helps the enjoyability of the video. But yeah, no, I thought you did a great job. My final thoughts, well, not my final thoughts, but my final thoughts for tonight on the map modeling, the debunk killer that you just put out, is that everybody should look into this themselves. see if you can debunk it. Try to test it out. Understand the things that Jason was explaining, the way that the sun and the moon are traveling in the sky, and how they couldn't work on either the globe Earth or the AMAPA model. These are the things that I've been doing for years. I just want you guys to do it yourself. You know, what better things do you have now? If you got better stuff to do for a hobby, if you should be researching the realm and getting you a reality check, you can join that Telegram group. The link is in the description box. But
So
what do we have things better to do when we have free time? Why wouldn't you want to know where you are?
we have Frank Logic in the chat asking if the 24,000 miles the heliocentric model states is accurate. Yeah. As far as the width of Earth is concerned, that is something that is verifiable. And you can do it with flight times. You would just have to...
The sun tells us.
Well, the sun tells us. But yeah, so 24,000 rough miles. We don't know if it's exact, but that is our width on the map. Now, we have questions as to whether or not this map is a true square or if it's a rectangle. All right, so we don't know if this measurement from top to bottom is 24,000 miles as well.
If we liken it unto the encampment that Moses was to construct in the promised land there, we do get more of a rectangle shape if it's fashioned in that way.
Yeah, the tabernacle was a rectangle. The Ark of the Covenant was a rectangle.
Well, there was a fence around that with the inner and the outer. There's a bunch of different things. They're all parabolically explained.
I'm talking about the actual Ark, though. The Ark was a rectangle.
Yeah, the Ark was a rectangle, so was the room.
The most holy was a square.
The one room, the entrance into that room where the Ark sat. Okay,
yeah, with the curtain, there was.
Yeah, but it was in a rectangular building.
It was in a rectangular building.
And then outside of that, there was a larger rectangle around that.
Yeah.
Right. And they were all aligned east, north, south, and west, perfectly aligned. Right. Yeah. You guys need to understand that.
So chances are this is a rectangle with the width being some odd 24,000 miles, and that would make this distance from top to bottom narrower if it was a rectangle, right?
Yeah. We would absolutely need the ability, which the Freemasons and the New World Order won't let us do. We would need to have some kind of a plane or something that we could actually go and fly all this and map it out the way that we should be able to if we lived in a free and open society, but we don't. But we can do the best that we can and bring up these types of things. Is there any more? I'm looking back in the chat.
Yeah. So we could measure this with a straight due south path from Greenwich down the prime meridian. If you went perfectly straight south, we would expect you to come back up through this Russian peninsula out here and cross the North Pole, and we would measure how long that took.
All we need to do is just keep our flight heading the same speed, and then we'd be able to clock how long it took us at that speed, and we'd be able to measure it once we cross the starting path again. The same way that I'm saying we can measure east-west by the length that the sun takes to cross our meridian point right above us, and then to come back across that point again, we could, with a stopwatch, boom, it's 24 hours. So that we know that the realm, it's 24 hours in width, right? Mm-hmm. That's how we can measure things.
It's true, brother. It's true. Yeah, so I don't see any more questions going on. Maybe we'll just wrap it up here and
I'm hungry.
start getting ready for memes of the week 9, right?
Yeah, we need you to make some memes. No, I'm kidding. You're busy in the editor making this new video. But yeah, we should have a good week. It probably won't be we'll see what the next few days hold, but I'm looking forward to the end of the week, and we'll see what we have coming our way. It looks bright. The weather's changing. Everybody seems to be looking for some truth, and I couldn't be more happy. It was nice to be here tonight.
It was. So thank you for joining, everybody. Where's the only place anybody's going to hear any of this information, brother?
Only on the Yahawahashai News Network.
Fire! Just let it go, babe. So lost without your love, like a darkness from above. But the sun is rising. Still don't know what's become of this. Aren't you getting tired of it? No time to take it slow. We still got ways to go. You keep coming back. Forget about it. Something that I said when the sky turned red. Just let it go, babe. Forget about it. Lost without your love. Darkness from above. But the sun is rising. Forget about it. I can't explain, but I know we're on something. Just a moment. It's never over. Forget about it. Turn and round from a life that's out of options. Keep on running. Feeling stronger. Forget about it. Was it something that I said when the sky was turning red? Just let it go, babe. So lost without your love,